Welcome to on-demand instructions video about word choice and tone. This presentation is based on the Common Core standards in literature. We will cover Common Core Literature Standard 4. Determine the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in a text, including figurative, connotative, and technical meanings. Analyze the cumulative impact of specific word choices on meaning and tone. In this lesson, we shall learn how word choice and tone affect the meaning of a text. We will also differentiate between the denotation, connotation, and figurative meaning of a word or phrase. We will also learn how to identify the tone of the text. Word choice and tone are both elements that alter the implied main idea of a paragraph. These elements can make us change what conclusions we draw from the text without changing the information that the text contains. Word choice and tone can alter what conclusions we draw from the text. Writers can alter how information is received by the reader without changing the information itself. Word choice and tone can make a big difference in how the information of the text is received by the readers. Word choice refers to the writer's choice of words to convey meaning to the reader. An idea can be worded in different ways to make different sentences. Even when it's the same idea, differences in word choice can change how the reader interprets ideas, because words can carry both direct and indirect meanings. The meanings of words and phrases can be categorized like this: denotation, connotation, and figurative meanings of figures of speech. Denotation is the explicit definition of the word. When a word is used, the denotation of that word is that word's definition, regardless of how the word is used in the text. This is often found in text where information must be given with the least amount of confusion, like in legal and scientific documents. Connotation is the hidden or suggested meaning of words. They can be used to change a reader's impression of the text without changing the information. Connotation is often most useful in informal texts to present something to the reader, but let the reader form his own conclusions. With figures of speech, writers can take one word or a group of words and use them to mean something other than their explicit meaning. Figures of speech create pictures in the mind of the reader. These mental images help convey the meaning faster and more vividly, so ideas become easy to visualize and are emphasized. An example of this is a simile. It is a comparison between two dissimilar things. For example, comparing somebody's eyes to daggers gives the impressions of how sharp that person's stare is. A metaphor is a word used to mean a completely different thing than its definition. In this example, saying that the world is a stage means that the writer is using the word stage as a metaphor for the world. A specific type of metaphor called personification uses human characteristics to describe non-human objects, like in this example. Irony is using words to convey the opposite of their meaning, like saying that a dreadful storm is delightful. Hyperbole is a figure of speech where the writer exaggerates terms to emphasize the severity or magnitude of something. On the other hand, litotes work by negating the opposite word of the meaning to emphasize it. A synecdoche is a figure of speech in which a part of an idea is used to represent the entire idea. Onomatopoeia words are words that imitate sounds associated with certain things or actions. This includes words like jangle or pop. The writer's attitude toward the text is called tone. It can be formal or informal, emotional or somber, whatever the writer wants to convey. Different types of tone are appropriate for different situations, and they affect how texts are perceived by the reader. The tone of a text can be determined by using 3 indicators: looking at word choice, point of view, and what the text is and where it's found. Official texts, such as legal documents, need to be unambiguous and efficient, so a formal tone and denotation is used. Argumentative essays use connotations of words in order to convince the reader to adopt the position of the writer. Literary texts use vivid imagery and informal and emotional tones to elicit a strong emotional response from the reader. Word choice and tone change how information is perceived by the reader, and they are used in all text, with some word choices more appropriate for certain texts than others. Texts that describe or explain need a formal tone to convey information quickly and efficiently. Those that are intended to cause an emotional response use connotations, figures of speech, and more informal tones to engage the reader. Here is an example of word choice. The words dream and ambition have a similar denoted meaning, which is goals that we plan to achieve in the future. Ambitions connote self-serving plans, while a dream show grand plans for a brighter future, changing the reader's view of Mr. Dibbler. In the next example, the word plan has a more neutral connotation, while schemes have a negative connotation that the scheme is probably harmful to somebody. Let's try identifying figures of speech in a sentence. The first example is a simile. The next example, which uses the word iron to mean tough and focused, is a metaphor. Saying that the cold is cruel is personification, giving the cold a human trait. Saying that one is so lucky when one clearly feels otherwise is irony. In the next example, obviously one could not really laugh all day, saying so is hyperbole. The next example is a litote. The next example is a synecdoche. The term of the used twang is an onomatopoeia. Let's practice identifying tone and word choice. The first example is from a food blog. This blog uses conversational English and its tone is informal. It is designed to give the reader an impression that he or she is conversing with the writer. In this news article, there's an urgent tone to convince the reader that the article is important. The tone is also impersonal and expresses no emotion. Word choice is literal, and has denoted meanings. It is relaying information to the public and cannot afford meanings to be misunderstood. In this last example, an article from a science journal, see if you can identify the tone and word choice. In this case, the text is formal and informative, with denotative meanings being the focus of the word choice. This makes it more authoritative and informative. How can I understand the figurative meaning of an unfamiliar figure of speech? In most cases, a figure of speech gives a mental image from which you can understand the implied meaning. Use context clues to infer the meaning. Research if further clarification is needed. Why are some word choices and tones more appropriate in some types of texts than others? Tone and word choice affect how the reader views information. A friendly letter is perceived as being informal because of its tone and word choice, and the same goes for a business letter. And we've come to the end of the lesson. You should be able to identify the denotated and connotated meanings of a word, as well as their figurative meanings. You should also be able to identify the tone of a text using word choice, point of view, and context. To summarize what we've learned, words can have a denoted, connoted, and figurative meaning, and the choice of which words are used in a text is called word choice. The tone of the text is the writer's attitude toward the topic, and it varies depending on word choice, point of view, and context. Word choice and tone affect how the information in a text is perceived by the reader, and some word choices and tones are more appropriate for certain types of text than others. For further reading, try reading these bibliographic and online resources. Don't forget to check back at www.ondemandinstruction.com for more instructional videos, podcasts, and materials. We update the site weekly.